And I could go on, but that's if you want all of those things, then we need to create a culture around that, and that goes into training people how to do the right things. It goes into managers that make sure these things happen. It goes into company leadership leading by example, getting out there in the field and getting their hands dirty to show people how to do things. It means it's just all of that. And then rewind all the way to the beginning. If those are all the things we want, then how do we make sure in our job descriptions, in our interviews, in our onboarding, that we are driving home those specific behaviors we want? But it's just all about behavior. It's not about, the rah-rah speech at the annual kickoff party. I mean, it's all those little things that matter, and not tolerating anything less than it.
Welcome to Sharpen the Spear podcast, where we help manufacturing executives command the front and win the floor. I'm Richard Walsh, creator of the Sharpened Impact methodology, and I've spent decades helping leaders transform frontline teams, unlock hidden profit, and capture capacity they didn't even know they had. If you want to see where your leadership gaps are costing you and how to fix them, head over to grittolead.com and run the free Sharpened Impact Simulator today. Let's sharpen your edge and get started. And we are back on STS Sharpen the Spear podcast with another incredible guest. I've got Tom Healy with us today. And Tom, no one knows Tom better than Tom. So, Tom, I need the backstory. Bring us up to speed. We'll get into the conversation.
All right. Well, thanks for having me. Appreciate it, and looking forward to this and seeing where the conversation goes. But I'll give you the short version of my background just to lay a little foundation here. I've been in the workforce now for 19 years as a professional. I graduated college, moved out to sunny Scottsdale, Arizona, and started speaking on college campuses, leadership development, and really all over the country, college campuses, national nonprofits that dealt with college students, helping students get more organized, be more successful, prepare for life after college. And then I started getting asked by companies, hey, can you help us with those people? And if you remember way back when, the big problem 15 plus years ago was these quote unquote millennials in the workplace. And they're so much different, and they don't care about money, and they want to work from home. And what in the hell's wrong with them? And so I started working with companies around what I'd call human capital strategies, which are how do we recruit the right people? How do we design better comp packages? How do we retain people long term? How do we transfer information to them so that they can hit the ground running and be productive quicker? And so I played in these two areas of college campuses and working with organizations, typically under 100 employees, on their people strategies. I had done about 125 nights of business travel when I was 30 years old. And I said, this is not enjoyable for me. This is not what I want to do for the rest of my life. I'm burned out. I'm exhausted. It's tough to date anyone. It's tough to have a life. So I need to figure out a different way. And so basically took all the work I was doing and shifted it to online learning, which 12 years ago kind of didn't exist the way it does now. There weren't a ton of platforms. There weren't a ton of ways for companies to transfer information to their employees. So some of the early stuff we did, believe it or not, was a Facebook app and videos in Google Drive. I mean, anything we could come up with to create content and share it with people. Now, of course, the learning platforms have got a lot better. And so as I'm working with companies on their training strategies, one of the big things I kept hearing was, hey, this is all great. And it's great that we can onboard people and give them information and give them more information when they take on a new role within the organization. But Tom, our HR is a disaster. And I used to say, I'm so sorry to hear that. That's awful. And then I thought, I'm hearing this enough. People are coming to me crying for help. And so then I started referring them to an outsourced HR organization here in town that had clients all over the country. So it was easy to say, hey, go work with them, go work with them. And then about a year ago, finally, the light bulb went off for both myself and my now business partner, Karen, of, hey, why don't we do this together? And so that's how I ended up as a co-founder at People Ops 360. We do outsourced HR. And really the idea is we serve as an HR manager for an organization that's not large enough or doesn't have the desire to bring that in-house. So that's how I got involved in the work I'm doing now in a little background.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So I know Scottsdale. My family's in Arizona. I live in Arizona. I was a state Golden Glove champion of Arizona
Oh,
back in the day, which is more than 15 years ago. but
just prior to
but
my
yeah,
arrival.
yeah. So Club SAR, if you know Club SAR, if it's still there
Sure,
and the whole
sure
thing. So
do.
that's where it was.
Yeah,
Yeah. So way back. But yeah, so I got ties there. All my family's out there. So I liked
love it.
it. Desert. I was in the Marine Corps too, though. Then back to the desert. And I said, this desert goes from light brown to dark brown. So I'm going to go where there's different colors.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go back to Chicago area. So I'm there now. I'm Wisconsin. So very cool though. Great to see you're out there. That's an awesome place. So let's talk about this because HR. And I've had different people on. A few. I've had some incredible people on in the HR field, and it doesn't. When you say it, it doesn't sound very interesting. Okay. It
No.
doesn't seem like you're going to have a conversation about that stuff that's not going to put 9 out of 10 people asleep. Okay. We're going to change all that today, Tom. Okay.
Well,
So,
and let me real quickly, I want to make a point because what's interesting is one of the things I've done for many years is gone around and spoke to CEO groups around the country. And so when you get in there and you start saying, okay, we're going to talk about your people today, um, what are the issues you're having? And so as they go through, oh, we can't retain people. They're asking for too much money. Our culture is degrading because everyone works from home. I mean, all the things that you've heard and probably discussed here on this podcast. But at some point you have to say, hey, I know that you don't like talking about HR, but these are all HR problems. And so if you want to sell more widgets, then we need to figure out a way to recruit better salespeople that can perform for you. So it's not the most interesting, sexiest number one priority for business owners, but so many of the issues and complaints they're having do tie to people operations.
yeah, I'm 100% in agreement with you. And I'm glad you brought that up and kind of put that in its place because as much as we want to automate, like I always say, automate, delegate, eliminate, right? Those are three things you're trying to do in your business all the time. I personally think the pendulum already has swung too far to the automation side.
Mhm.
Okay. And I think they've missed the ball. People are still an intricate part of your business. Okay. And they're always going to be. Right. And if you can't, I don't want to use the word manage, but it's the only thing I got right now. Okay. If you can't manage the people, and to go back what you said near the beginning with millennials and all that, right? So every generation, Tom, is talking about the new generation, don't want to work, they're lazy, they're this. Okay. This goes back to the beginning of time. Okay.
Yes.
So it's not real. All right, here's the deal, right? Let's just say it's not real. And I always give this example. So I was in the Marine Corps, right? I was at a World War II reenactment big thing here where I live, and I go up to this booth, and it's a veterans thing, and they're talking. They say, "Oh yeah, I was in the Marine Corps. When?" I thought, "Oh, 83." I went. They go, "Ooh," and they go, "Real Marine. You're a real Marine." And I look at them like, "Dude, we said the same thing about the Nam guys." They were
Yeah.
the real Marines. I go, and they
Yeah.
said it about the Korea. We said it about World War II. I mean, it's the same thing, dude. We're all real, okay? Like we're all
Yeah.
real. It's just we have a different thing, right? And I find what you said about the millennials. I love to dive into this too, but each generation, because there's 5 generations working together right now,
Yep.
right? Okay, go manage that, will you? Okay, they all have they all have different desires. They all want to work for different. I mean, so let's kind of dive into that because you're putting together an ability to actually manage that, right, for these companies and bring
Oh,
the
sure.
most out of all of them, and that's got to be a challenge. I know I squirreled there a little bit, but rein us back in.
No, you bring up a good point, which is okay, managing people is hard enough, running organizations is hard enough. We have these different departments, different silos, new people, people have been there forever. Oh, and by the way, now we need to commingle 5 different generations, which means different attitudes, different relationships to technology. And that's why, part of this, it's funny because there's times where organizations will complain and they'll say, oh, well, the 5 generations is so difficult. And I'll say, well, it doesn't have to be that way. And what I mean by that is you can design your organization however you want. And you may say, we want to skew very, very young. or we don't want to hire anyone under 30. You can certainly do that if you want to. And that's what I love. And the conversations around, who really moves the needle around here? Who are the high performers? How do we find more of them? What are the pain points? And so I could tell you stories all day, but I'll give you a quick one. I was working with a engineering firm, and hey, some people we hire are great, some people are terrible. We have no idea how to figure out who makes it, who doesn't make it. What do we do? Okay. So I come in, I do my research, I look at all the data, and I said, this is such a simple solution. All your best hires are not coming from major college campuses, they're coming from branch campuses, and they're coming from community colleges. And well, Tom, what we spend hundreds of thousands of dollars a year recruiting at some of the nicest, biggest colleges in the country. I said, and you're completely wasting your money. HR, who was in the room, looked horrified. Do you know why? Because that was the primary responsibility they had, was to go to the college fairs, do all the fancy interviews. And I said, look, all the high performing people that you identified worked their way through college, probably paid for college themselves. They didn't go to the nicest school, but they're gritty, they're hardworking, they appreciate it. So let's build a human capital strategy around finding those types of people. Another example is any organization with a lot of salespeople. Think trades, think insurance. Hey, I've got door knockers, whatever the case is. What are your best people coming from? Are they coming to you as a veteran of the industry that has a book of business? Or are they coming to you straight out of high school with no education, but they'll do whatever you tell them to do and they have no fear? Well, let's figure out what that persona is and then triple down on recruiting, developing, and retaining those types of people. So I think sometimes, again, your point about generations, I think sometimes people just take whoever they take. There is no strategy or thought to it. And they go, gosh, it's really hard to manage all these people because they're so different, age, background, education, you name it. Well, yeah, you've tried to take this massive collection of people and then build a culture around them when they have very, very little in common and probably don't have shared values. And it's almost impossible. You've made running a business more difficult than it needs to be.
Yeah, so true. And I love how you put it, like, and this goes back to personal ownership. Okay. It's your company. You can have whoever you want work here. Like,
Sure.
did no one tell you that? Like, you own
Yeah.
the place. Like, you run
And,
the
and,
place.
and,
Like, you could do that.
and oh, by the way, I know it's fun to say, oh, well, we're a workplace family. Well, you're not a family, it's a business. And if somebody's not performing, you don't have to keep them forever. They are not entitled to a lifetime position in your organization. People that are not performing and returning a positive ROI on the salary you're paying them, they are stealing from your company. Now,
Yeah.
you can allow it if you want to, or you can do something about it. So again, you get whatever you tolerate. Another thing that I love just from a strategy standpoint is asking the owner of a business, what behavior do you want? Because then my next question is, do your compensation packages align with that? So we want everyone to feel like an owner. Well, we better put some type of stock or profit share or bonus in place. And you probably need to be willing to open up some part of your books to say, this is what we did this quarter, and this is what you're receiving. So we're going to treat you like an owner, but we have to do that from a comp package standpoint. It's not going to just magically happen.
Yeah. And how is that received when you say that?
By the owner,
Yeah.
it depends. It really just depends. And that's where one of the things I always say, it's your business, not my business. I can tell you what I would do. I can give you my suggestions, but it is your business and you can do whatever you want. If you want to buy a $400,000 vehicle and park it out front while you're paying minimum wage to people that are parking near you, you are entitled to do that. Do I think it's a good strategy? No. But you can do whatever you want in this business. You can pay below average, you can pay above average. And so it's just a matter of really understanding the business owner. How do they feel about their people? How much do they value their people? What behavior do they want from their people? What types of people do they believe are high performers that align with the culture? So I'm just trying to learn all this. And a lot of organizations, you know, I won't work with because the owner of the organization is kind of a jerk. And they truly believe that their people are a widget, a tool, a number, and that they can swap them in and out. And frankly, we don't want to work with them because they're going to have incredibly high turnover. They're constantly going to have HR issues. And so the fee that we're charging them is not going to be nearly enough because they're going to be 5 times as much work as someone that treats their people the right way and has minimal issues. So, it's just for the organization to decide. And so a lot of this is, the personality of ownership and how they truly feel about people. Now, I believe, and you can say I'm right, say I'm wrong, whatever, but I just believe that these two things align, meaning what do most business owners want? Well, they want a profitable business. They want to grow year over year. They eventually want to have a successful exit, right? They want to be able to take a vacation without having to be on their phone the entire time. Pretty standard, right? Now, my belief is the best way to achieve those outcomes is to build a killer team of people that love you, that would run through a wall for you, that feel well compensated, that tell their friends to come work there, that stay with you for forever, that show up early, stay late, that represent you well out there in the field. So those two things go hand in hand. So why would you, if you want all those outcomes as a business owner, why would you not do everything you can to build a great team of people that are with you long term? Because they're gonna get you to where you want to be.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's the human capital aspect, really what it comes down to, like you said. And I like that, because back to kind of your bad owner, um, I've run into this too, right? Coaching businesses, there's people I have to let go, clients I have to let go because for one, they're not someone I want to work with, but two, they're not doing the work, but then they'll cast aspersions on the coach because they didn't do the work. And what they end up doing, if you stick with those people, they'll tarnish your reputation far more than they'll wreck their own. Theirs is already wrecked. Okay, so
Sure.
so you got to know when to bail. That's a really good point there. And I think designing when we let's I want to dive into this a little bit because you mentioned a little bit earlier is a lot of people throw out the culture word. Okay, I
Yes.
want a good company culture. And they say it, and people tell them they should do it. And they don't ever tell them how. And I'd love you to break down since you've got the experience in this. You've seen probably all different levels of culture. I'm air quoting here, but really kind of break it down and how this stuff is developed because I've got my own views and I do it in different ways. But people need to understand first the importance of culture, and secondly, or maybe first and then the other one was second was like what it actually means because it's culture is kind of an operating system, right? That you're putting in. So let's dive into that a little bit if you could, so people get some real clarity on this because it's very muddy water when you're talking about it
Yeah.
with most business owners.
Yeah, and I know it's one of those things that sometimes gets dismissed of, oh, okay, culture, it's one of those fluffy
Yep.
things, and oh, you're talking about putting words on the wall. To me, when I think of culture, I think of how my people are behaving. So what if I own a plumbing company? How do I want my people to behave? Well, if they're on the phone with a customer and they're working in a service role, I want them to be friendly. I want them to be professional. I want them to be succinct. I want them to bend over backwards to assist the customer however they possibly can. I want them to treat others on their team nice. I want them to show up early. I want them to stay late. I want them to be proud to work there. Okay. Then my people out in the field, I want them to show up with a tucked in shirt. I want them to offer to take their shoes off when they arrive. I want them to get there 5 minutes before the meeting. I want them to fix whatever they can on site. I want them to give real recommendations versus just trying to generate revenue for the company. I want them to provide value, even if it's something we can't directly help with. And I could go on and on, but that's if you want all of those things, then we need to create a culture around that. And that goes into training people how to do the right things. It goes into managers that make sure these things happen. It goes into company leadership leading by example, getting out there in the field and getting their hands dirty to show people how to do things. It means it's just all of that. And rewind all the way to the beginning. If those are all the things we want, then how do we make sure in our job descriptions, in our interviews, in our onboarding, that we are driving home those specific behaviors we want? But it's just all about behavior. It's not about, the rah-rah speech at the annual kickoff party. I mean, it's all those little things that matter, and not tolerating anything less than it. But that's what I love. See, to me, a great culture you feel, okay? And we've all had that. So we've had the electrician come over to our house that was 10 minutes late, blamed you for why they couldn't get in your gate, didn't take their shoes off, clearly were trying to upsell you. And you're like, that this is a awful company that I do not want to do business with. And I would never call again, and I would never recommend to my friend. At the same time, a great example is the first time I needed some physical therapy. A friend of mine here locally owns 26 clinics. Okay. And you walk in there and everyone is so nice. Can we get you a bottle of water? You're going to be over there in starting in 5 minutes. You're going to be with Brad today. And he, former college football player. You're going to love him. He's a great guy. And, we got some music going and everybody's fit and friendly and happy and treating you well. That's a great culture. You can just feel it. Like they want to be there and they want to help you and they're in that business for the right reason. So I just, when I think culture, I'm like, well, how do you want your people to behave when they're interacting with your customers, your clients, your patients, whatever business you're in?
Yeah, that's great. I think, when it comes down to behavior, you're exactly right. You want that outcome. And now we'll back up a little bit, we'll kind of reverse engineer. If you want that, how are you hiring? Now we got to talk about hiring process. Like you gotta weed these people out,
Yeah.
right? Like that is that something you guys develop for companies
We
as well?
yeah, so we can do everything. So I look at people as a start to finish. There's a spectrum that happens, and you start off by posting the job description. And what does that job description have? How do we attract the right people? How do we scare the wrong people away? Where are we posting that job description, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, all the way to how do we offboard people so that they don't hate our company? They may want to apply again. They post a positive review on Glassdoor, and there's a million things in between. But what I'll tell you, and you said something that made me think of this, but a lot of times where we get lost is all the little details. And so I'm the entrepreneur that loves vision, big picture, strategy, all the fun stuff, right? I love to write things down on a whiteboard. But if you want to have a great people operations strategy, it's all these tiny little things. And so when someone applies to our company, what is the response that they're getting? How long does it take? Does it feel warm or does it feel automatic? How long until someone schedules an interview with them? How quick is our hiring process? Are we welcoming them into our home, into our business, and making them feel the love, whether they work with us or not? Are we on time for that? I mean, and I could go through there, but everything is so nuanced. How do we evaluate people? How do we make sure they're the right fit? How do we figure out if they align with what we've identified as our top performers? My point to all this is there's a million different things, and I'm not going to pretend that us or anyone like us can come in and fix this all in 30 days, but this is what we're trying to do over time is all these tiny little things, because it's the difference between someone saying, I'm going to come work for your company, or I'm going to work with another company. Like I was not that long ago working with a new client of ours, and we broke down their hiring process. And they said, Tom, it takes us. Or, I'm sorry. What they said was we lose people. We can't get the people we want to get. And I broke it down basically from the time that they applied to the time that they got an offer letter. It took 6 weeks. And I
Right.
said, so let me guess, these people are applying for other jobs. Some other company moves quicker and scoops them up. And they go, yeah. I said, well, then we need to get your 6 week process down to 2 weeks. And it's not difficult to do, but we have to adjust a bunch of tiny little things. Some of it is AI autonomous. Some of it's just people responding to emails faster. But we have to get this down to 2 weeks so that we can attract people.
Yeah, that's, the detail aspect. This is really important because when I work with companies as well, you can start with a hefty change, but you're going to keep tweaking it because you're going to find, because here, you have to monitor the responses, right? Like you're saying, like, who do we actually hire? What was said in the interview? Why did they say no to the offer? Right. It's not like everyone wants, everyone's going to work with you. Everyone's going to, when you say yes, they're going to say yes. That doesn't always happen either because they may hear something down the road or again, the details. And I really love you laid that out, Tom, because I do it with like a lot of my contractors, some of my high end contractors. It's like, you know what we're creating? A world class experience.
Yes.
It's not about everyone gets the same end result, a beautiful home. No one cares about, go talk to the owner. Well, what was it like? Oh, I'd never do it again. They don't show up. They're this and late. They're dirty. This, the music, the swearing, the whole. Everyone's got a horror story, right?
My,
So,
my best friend's going through it right now, and they were incredibly responsive before he signed the agreement. They did a decent job, but there were some lingering issues, and now he can't get them back on the phone. He's had to loop in the owners. They're going to get a bad review. He's never going to refer them to anyone else in his
yep,
community, all because you stop delivering a world-class experience
that's
at
it.
some point along that. And one important point I want to make too, just using some of your clients as an example, you're having them build that world-class experience for the customer. I would just challenge them. Also think about delivering a world-class experience for your employees.
Yeah, and that's what's being done, right?
Yeah.
So there's pre-construction meetings with all the subs. Everybody knows what's coming down the pike. When I always say, no one wants a mystery job. A mystery job is you don't know what's going to happen each day until you show up. No
Yep.
one wants to go to that job. Okay. And if that's how you
People,
run,
yeah.
they're
People don't
out.
like people don't like things that are unpredictable, uncertain, change all the time. Uh, Go as the wind blows. I mean, they want boring, predictable work. I show
Yeah.
up, this is what I do, and I can go home to my family. And every other Friday I'll get a paycheck or however it works. They want boring and predictable.
Well, I also tell them here's another thing that like you can do for your people. Actually demonstrate, show them and train them how to win each day. How do you be successful every day, every week, every month, every quarter, every year? If you can build a system they can operate in where they know how to win every day, I think most of us want to win every day. And I think they'll show up to work to a place they can win every day.
It's the expression which I'm about to butcher of if I help everyone else get what they want, I will
Yep,
get what I want.
that's
And
it.
so if you look at each team member and say, what do they want personally and professionally? How can my organization help give that to them? If all of those things are in alignment, they will do a great job for you. And if all 20 people, all 50 people in your organization are all operating at a B plus or an A minus or an A or an A plus, guess what? You're going to have a heck of an organization. You're going to get all those things you want. Positive reviews, growth year over year, great referrals from other people in the community, employees that want to work for you, people on your team that are asking their friends to apply there, et cetera, et cetera. Just had this conversation with a prospect yesterday. And basically, what was happening is people in the organization were like, hey, my friend Bob would really like to work here. So they would make that introduction to someone on the team, and then nothing happened. As you know, the best referrals for employees come from high performers already in your organization. And so they were losing out on all this great talent, and people in their company stopped referring their friends because nobody would get a response. Meanwhile, what's the correct answer? As soon as you get that introduction, send a text. Hey, Bill spoke to, Bill says very nice things about you. we'd love to meet with you. When are you available over the next few days to get together or have a screening conversation or fill out this application or whatever it is? But that's a hot lead.
Yep.
And treat it the way you would treat a hot customer lead. Jump on it, respond, move them through the process, especially if you're looking for qualified people. Because,
Well,
I'm sure with your clients, it's not like there's this overflow of talent in the trades or really any industry.
right. I think it's important. I always tell people ABH, always be hiring.
Yeah.
You interview, you don't have to hire anybody. But what you want is a steady stream of interviews because there's always that one person you'd really like to replace. Okay. And this talent that could all of a sudden show up. You just said if you got a B minus player, and then this person comes in and it's like he's an A player. Wow, we could make a shift. We could find a place for him and work that replacement, however that works. But we're always, because I always have my 2 word saying, everybody leaves. People are always going to leave your business. You need to have those resumes flowing, those interviews. And to go back to about when someone in your company, especially a top performer, refers someone, they're not going to refer a slacker. They're only going to bring someone who they associate with, which means they're associated with high performers. Okay. That's who they're
Yep.
bringing to the team. So it's beyond a hot lead. They get moved to the front of the line. It's like we need to talk
Absolutely.
to them. And if you don't, and like you said, what you've done is you've crushed their ability to want to refer people. For one, you've cut off your best pipeline to quality people.
And
It's
it should be it should be the opposite. It should be anyone you refer to us if they end up coming to work here and they end up being an awesome hire, and we know that within the first 90 days that they're going to be here long term, we're going to give you $1,000
yep.
or,
We
or
hit it.
whatever that number is, 500, 5,000. Pick a
Yeah.
number, but really make it worth their while.
Yeah, well, my kids when they're like 16, one son I think it was 15, 14 or 15, started a fast food restaurant, this corporate, and they would hire anyone who fogged a mirror. Okay. So of course you know how well that works out. That doesn't work out so good, but they'll hire 25 people at a time because that's the model, right? But
Yeah.
they did this 90-day, this $1,000 referral incentive. Okay. So my son's kind of, creative. So he's like, okay, let me get my brother. Let me get my sister, got my grandmother. He tell him I'll split it with you. You got to make the 90 days, but I'll split it with you. Dude, he's cleaning up. He got them all the way. So he made $1,500, out of the 3,000. They all made
Yeah.
their 500. So he's like working the deal, but they did that for a short period of time. But most people, even then, they couldn't make it past a week.
Of
Okay.
course.
So just to make that counterpoint of hiring is one thing, the process is so critical. Like, and a model, like I use fast food, Tom, as a model because you got first jobbers, never worked before. You got teenagers, don't know anything. So and then you got seniors who don't care. They're looking to get out of the house and do something and whatever. They're not going to take a lot of crap. Right. And then you got middle-aged managers who are just angry because they're dealing with children and seniors. And that's the model. I'm like, that's everywhere. Like, holy cow, whatever. I made my kids work there because I wanted them to see it, understand systems, right? Go through, be a cog, work your way up. And they were, of course, the best performers. I'm not just saying that because they're my kids, but they crushed it, but 2 years they were done because you can only operate
But
in chaos for so long.
we're laughing about that, but why is the plumbing company any different that has kids right out of high school and people that are 67 years old and still in the workforce? You're going to have some of those same challenges, and you're going to have the angry Gen X managers in
Yep.
the middle that are upset with both sides.
Yeah, it's just, and
Yeah.
so here's the thing, like this is what you said in the beginning that's really important. Like you're the owner, like manage it. If that's the workforce that requires to meet your margins, because that's where they're at, right? I mean,
Yeah.
they're paying so much now just for like we used to make nothing doing that job, right?
Every
Because now
everyone's expensive. People are expensive.
that's right. That's right. So if you can't look at that, that has to be a priority on your priority scale as an owner. Like these people, I mean, everyone. It's a what do they call it? It's fast casual, right? So you're
Yep.
sitting down and someone's carrying your food out to you, and you got drive through, you got the whole thing, right? Well, you got to maintain, you got to manage that, right? Who are you actually bringing on the team, and why is the pool so small, and why are they leaving? And I'll give you an example. You'll appreciate this. So they had a general manager there, and I'm using a local one that here, unbelievable general manager. Okay. Just top notch. The people who worked there would die for him. That's how good he was. I don't care if you were 13, 14, or you were 60, like they loved him. Well, he finally got to own his own store, right? So off he goes. Now they were ranked like they were number seven out of like 700 locations. That's how good they were on surveys and performance. He left. It wasn't even a year later. They were 700 and like seven. Okay. I mean, it dropped. So here's the problem, right? First, you had a great GM, but now that's very people dependent now. That particular scenario, now one person's removed, the whole thing goes in the crapper. You know what I mean? So like, yes, the guy was great, and I'm not knocking him or anything like that. I'm just saying like the system wasn't finished. They weren't
Yep.
something was missing, right? If you become personality dependent, you're going to run into some issues because again, everybody leaves. He went on to bigger and better things in the
I,
same company.
I wrote a LinkedIn post about that very topic this morning, and basically the idea was, these people, they're the ones that know everything, and all the information has to flow through them, and they're the only one that knows how to do anything. And if they were to leave, all that information goes away. Um, then and this is what I see a lot is those people often know that and they use that as leverage. No one else can do what I do, so I'm demanding a 25% pay raise. Or I'm going to do the bare minimum because I know you're not going to get rid of me because I'm the only one that's the protector of this process, this information. I have to be involved. So it's a very
I
scary
I
place to be.
I call it a hostage situation.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
That's what it is. I mean, that and this I see it all the time.
Yeah.
Like I come in,
especially in small
okay,
especially in small businesses.
yeah, and I have to go to the owner and say, listen, I know like she's awesome. She does everything. We have to fix that. And they're like, fix it. Yeah, we can't have that. Okay. You
because
can't.
because that's you've designed a spot in your organization based off of a person,
Right.
which doesn't work. You
Right.
can't, it can't be personalities. Oh, well, Mary's not good on the computer, so we'll let her do it a different way. She can log invoices with a paper and pen. That's not how things work here. This is the
Right.
job, this is what you have to do.
Yeah. We put people into systems, not systems into people. It's
I
very
want to
important to
make
understand that.
I want to make another quick point on you were talking about how you own the business, you can do whatever you want. And it's funny, I was working with a very successful company, um, and they had 10 salespeople, and the owner was, I mean, upset. And I was speaking to this CEO group, so I could tell this was an issue he had brought up before, and I think people were a little sick of hearing him complain but not do anything about it. And long story short, he had 10 salespeople that were not generating revenue and were just taking inbound calls that of
Okay.
leads that he had generated and cultivated for them. And I mean, I said, well, tell me what they make. And he's like, oh, they all make about 100,000 a year. And I said, what about commissions? How much can they make? And he's like, no, I pay him a salary. And I said, whoa, hold on a second here. The action you want is you want feisty salespeople working the phones, pounding the pavement, going to networking events. Am I right? He's like, yeah, it's exactly what I want. I said, but you're paying them a salary. And based on, no offense, but based on the city that you're in, $100,000 goes a really long way. So what's the difference if they make 110 or they make 140? I mean, you've made them fat and happy, and they've been here forever. They know you're not going to get rid of them. They know you're not going to. So I said, you can either live with the fact that they're just going to answer the phone in their home office working remotely, or you can change the way you comp them. But it's your business. That's what I said to him. I said, it's your business. You can do whatever you want. These people are holding you hostage. Why? I mean, if you got rid of all of them and found people that, were younger, hungrier, and working on commission, and you were feeding them some leads and they were going out and doing business, would that be better? He's like, well, that would be way better. And and,
And
and
you'd
oh,
only
by the
need
way,
three. You need three
well, so
instead
that's
of
that's
10.
another that's another interesting point that I want to share is, and this doesn't work for everything, but I see a lot of organizations where they have five people doing something and they pay market rate for that. So let's say market rate is $50,000 and they have five people in that role plus benefits and other expenses. And they're all doing a okay job. Well, let me ask you something. What if you only had three people doing that, but you paid them more? Or two people doing that and you paid them even more? I can tell you that the vast majority of the time, you get more productivity out of two A players than you do out of five C players.
Yep.
And now, if I'm paying that role that my competitors are paying 50,000 to, if I'm paying 80,000 for it, guess what? They're not going to leave me. They work hard, they do a great job, they align with our culture, and they're going to stay with us, maybe not forever, but for a very long time. So I like smaller headcount, higher comp. It always, I mean, again, it almost always pencils out.
Yeah, you've got to instill incentive. Okay, and
Yeah.
incentive comes in all shapes and sizes, from recognition, from purpose. All these things have to be incentivized, and you have to approach it in a very um proactive way. You really have to look at that. It's just like when you track your numbers. Okay, you're looking at numbers like you just laid it out. I'm dropping $250,000 a year for five people. What am I getting? Okay. So once am I getting 350 back? Am I getting 500 back? Am I getting 237 back? And I'm in the hole. Okay. Like you have to look at that. But then even when you figure it out, like what could they do? Because everyone can be motivated. And if you can't motivate them in the proper way, they're never going to perform to their potential. They're never going to actually be a true asset to your company, because every employee should be an asset. You mentioned it earlier, right? They have to be earning more than they're bringing in more than they're being paid. It's just the nature of the business, and it's not always a dollar amount. There could be some intangibles, connections, and networking, and all that kind of stuff. But we have to understand, you have to look at it in a bigger picture, right? And really
And
drill down in this.
as an experienced coach, feel free to tell me I'm wrong or challenge me on this, but I believe that one of the ways companies get what you just said wrong is they believe that to motivate people, they can stand up there at the quarterly town hall and say, we're going to have our best year ever. We're going to grow by 50. They don't give a, I
Nope,
won't swear.
nope,
They don't
nope,
care.
they
So,
don't.
well, but I want my people to be motivated. Well, find out what they care about, have a one-to-one with them and say, what are you working towards? Where do you want to be in 5 years? How much money do you want to make this year? What are your personal and professional goals? How can we help you do that? That's how you get people motivated. It has to be internal and about them, not this external thing of, oh wow, yeah, I really hope that we grow this year so that Bill can get a new Ferrari.
Yeah, it's I do that with mission statements. I walk, if I see a mission statement on a wall, I'm in a company, we want to be the best, blah, 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 and all this stuff. I take that off and I like throw it in their trash can. I'm like, this is wallpaper. No one cares. No one cares what you want. This is for your ego only. Okay, the guy sitting here who's working the line, everything else, he don't want to read it. He doesn't want to be reminded of how well you're doing. Okay, he doesn't. They don't want that. Like you need to promote vision among everyone. Like where are they going? Where are they going by being here? We know what's in it for them. That kind of the whole thing. And I'm not foo foo on this stuff. I'm hardcore. Like how do we show everyone in the entire organization how they're the hero and they're part of the journey? Show them what that means, and then do like you said. What are they looking to do when you're talking sales, commission, incentives? What are their goals? Because if the sales comp, the compensation plan does not align with their goals, you might not want that person on the team.
And they
You might
often
say,
don't.
yeah, and you see, you need
Oh,
to go
yeah.
somewhere else and get what you need, because you're never going to achieve that here. That ceiling that you want, okay, is way lower here. It's not, you're not going to make it. You're going to bump into the
Yeah.
ceiling too soon.
Comp packages oftentimes do not align with what behaviors the leaders of the company are looking for. And you have to get those things in alignment. You have to know how you measure performance. So how do I know if someone's an A player versus a C player at sales, at service, at being out there in the field as a technician? How do you measure performance? Is there a net promoter score? Is there revenue generated? Is there satisfaction? Is there how many calls they can hit in a day, week, or month? I mean, there has to be a scorecard to what they're doing, and then we tie how much they make to that, not based on, oh, you've been here for 10 years, so we're going to pay you more. Well, Mary, you've been here for 10 years, but you haven't gotten any better at your job. So why am I paying you 40% more than when you started working here? You haven't gotten any better. Why? I mean, that never made sense to me. I'll tell you another quick funny story, just about how people, don't care about the owner, right? I remember years ago, a mentor of mine, he was eyeing a new car, and this was early on when the Tesla Model X came out, the SUV with the wing doors. And I think at the time they might have been $125,000. And so he was talking to us and he said, I thought about getting one, but I decided not to because it would have cost too much. And someone said, you have the money, it's $125,000. He goes, that's not what it would cost me. He goes, it would have cost me over $500,000. And people are looking at him like, what are you talking about? And he said, look, if I come rolling into a parking lot in that car, everyone's going to ask for a raise because they're going to think I'm making so much money that I can buy this really expensive car. He's like, so I'm gonna keep my Ford.
But and there's a couple like that's one justification, right? And I get that. There's also guy owners I know like they sometimes don't have the best car in the parking lot. They always buy used. They got a ding in the
Yeah,
thing because they don't give a rip. They're in
yeah,
doing the job doing that. They're like, and there's none of that animosity that's created either. And they understand they're seen in the place. There's a whole mindset to this, right? You get that being the HR specialist and stuff like there's responsibility at every level in a business. Okay. And when you're talking ownership at the top, it's like everything falls back on you. If you can accept that, you need to. But again, to shape your team in all the ways that you're saying. And that's why when you bring in an expert like you, Tom, who has this big picture of how to do it, because a lot of people, and I know you're specific, right? You're HR, you're doing this, but when you understand the entire realm, like what you just shared for the last whatever it's been, right? You're a guy to bring on. And here's why I'm not saying that because you're just my guest. I'm saying that someone has to have a larger view of the business as a whole from an HR standpoint because people get very tunnel vision in their expertise. Sometimes you don't want to talk to experts. Okay. Because they can only see what they do and they'll conflict with each other and there'll never be a consensus. But if you can't see the big picture, which is the ultimate outcome of the entire business, okay, you can get pulled down the wrong hole, so to speak, right?
sure. Well, that's, I mean, and again, I get it. It's not the most exciting topic, but the reality is if an organization thinks that HR is running payroll, processing pay work when they show up, processing pay work when they leave, handling complaints, you're wrong because you're missing the other 90% of it, which is the stuff you and I are talking about.
Right.
And so what happens is, okay, I need to have the office manager run payroll. I need to have our operations person also kind of do HR and check it off the list. That being said, you miss out on all of these things that drive outcomes because when these things are done right, they lead to business results. That's why I'm passionate about this stuff. It's not that I like building cultures for the sake of building cultures. I like when the company wins. And again, with very, very few exceptions, for a company to win, there needs to be strong performance out of an aligned group of people. So, how do you get there? You do all these other things well. And when I go into companies, and I'll pick on, I know you work with a lot of trades companies, I'll pick on them as an example. You go in there and where are you posting jobs? Yeah, I don't know. We put it on some places. Let me see a job description. Oh, they're not good. What happens when someone applies? Oh, well, it just goes in that inbox. And if we need someone, we search through and start making some calls. How do you onboard them so that they're not sitting there wondering what they have to do? How do you comp people? How do you make them feel like they're an owner in the organization? How transparent are you in how you deliver information? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What benefits are you providing? Are you working with the right benefits provider? Are you giving them a package that's competitive with what other people are? And so on and so forth. But all these strategic decisions, if you nail them, then you have a group of people that'll perform for you. And if you don't, then you go, why aren't we winning? Why are we down from last year? Why are we not growing the way we used to? Why are we getting stories of people out in the field with their shirt hanging out that smell like cigarette smoke and are showing up 10 minutes late? We don't tolerate that. Well, because you have the office manager playing HR versus looking at this as a strategic asset for your company.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, that just well said. Okay. And again, I'll highlight one thing you said. You need someone passionate about HR. Okay. You've got the enthusiasm, right? You've answered the questions. You get the big picture. You're about the business outcome. I'm the same way. I'm about, let's make the business thrive, because if the business thrives when you're doing it right, so do the people. It's just not a profit loss thing. I mean, it's really about who wants to show up every day and be happy to show up, right? It's creating the culture that way. It's understanding true outcomes. Again, understand where they're the hero and that they're part of the journey. How are they engaging on the daily basis? What's the congruency of that from the owner down to the lowest person on the totem pole? How does that work? It doesn't mean the owner has to be everybody's best friend, but like there has to be a connection. They have to understand, we're all here to succeed. And again, I'm not that super foo-foo guy at all. I'm very kind of a little hardcore, but I understand standards. Like, do you have established standards in your business that you can call back to when someone's negotiating, when you told them what to do and they wouldn't negotiate it? Yeah, we don't negotiate. Okay. I told you to do it, you do it. It's pretty simple, but that's part of a culture too. It's an operational procedure that you have in there. So I just
Oh,
love every, yeah,
yeah. Well, I was gonna say, and to your point about foofy, because I get it. People go, stuff's kind of foofy. Well, what we're talking about here today is what Nick Saban did at Alabama to win all those national championships. It's what Bill Belichick did with the New England Patriots. It's what the military does. Okay. How do you get people aligned? How do you develop strong leaders? How do you win together? So if you think that winning championships in professional sports is foofy, okay. But
yeah,
your organization, there's a lot of best practices that you can emulate there.
right. And and I'll just give you one quick example as we wrap up. So I was in a lunch and learn and had a woman talking about HR and people and personality tests, and they're a D and they're an S and all this stuff. So this is what I'm talking about, the foofy. So I'm listening to this stuff because you get a free lunch. So you're there and I'm listening to this, and finally after this man goes, so what do you do? Put their little numbers on their name badge so I know how to talk to them. And with the 165 people that work here, I'm supposed to know how to. I go, I'm not understanding the reasoning for this. Like I guess it sounds cool. I said, but practical application, that's not gonna be effective. If you think you have to bend to everybody's personality, you don't have a business. You got a daycare. You got a daycare, man. You are dealing with a bunch of children. So your
Yeah.
thoughts on that?
Well, you're exactly right. That stuff sounds good and it's fun to do at the annual company retreat. And you bring in the speaker and you do the name badges and all of that. And 48 hours later, it all evaporates. So
Right.
you're exactly right there. That's kind of real world, my perspective on that as well. Um, Now, the second point I think is an important one because that how I feel is what I just heard you say, which is, you know, you can let the patients run the asylum, or you can create the environment that you want. And I like working with companies that say, here's our environment. Now, we can have a very diverse group of people. They can be different ages and different backgrounds and different levels of education. And we can be a little bit of a melting pot here. However, There are certain things that we expect. We expect people to treat each other the right way. We expect people to take ownership and not make excuses. We expect people to communicate in a respectful and concise way with their teammates. We expect people to always be on time. You come up with those, 8, 10, 5, whatever it is, non-negotiables. And that's where it's like, no, I'm not going to bend over backwards for 100 people. This is our culture. This is the way we do things here. And if you don't like it, there's other places in town that you can work. I don't owe you a job. I don't owe you a lifetime paycheck here. This is the way we do things. And if you establish those, and it's objective, and then it makes it easy to hire, it makes it easy to fire, it makes it easy to hold people accountable. But yeah, I'm not one of these that, oh, we need to bend over backwards for everyone. It's the remote work thing. Well, someone wants to work remotely because they have to pick up their kids, they have to drop off their kids, they have this, they have then you're not a fit here, because we
Right.
expect everyone in the office. That's our culture. That's the way we do business. And I think, you have to take a hard line stance on this stuff, because if not, the adage, you give people an inch and they'll take a mile.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. So good. Tom, this has been awesome. And I'm glad.
Appreciate it.
I hoping it would be. You did not disappoint. Very aligned on this. I love what you're doing. And so how do people reach out? How do they get in touch with you, follow you? You know the drill.
Yeah.
What do they got to do?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. That's an easy place to connect. But if this stuff seems interesting, I'm happy to have a conversation. And if I can give tips and perspectives and be a sounding board, I'm always happy to do that. And if you just want an HR manager in your business and have our team handle it, obviously we'd love to work with you if there's alignment. So my email address is Tom at peopleops360.com, Tom at peopleops360.com. And we just start off by having a conversation, and we'll see where it goes.
I love it. I love it. Well, I always tell my people who listen, there's listening, there's learning, but more importantly, there's doing. And if you don't
Yes,
make the call, send the email, begin the conversation, then you pretty much wasted your time. So you'll never
agreed.
get this hour back. So let's
Mhm.
let's make it valuable. Let's reach out to Tom. If you're thinking about this, you want to get into this, find out more, definitely do that, because for me, Tom, you're a guy who's really got your pulse on what it takes to do HR the way it should be done to benefit everybody and the company, both bottom line and the personnel issues. So good for you. And for everybody else, we will see you on the next STS podcast. Thanks for joining me on the Sharpen the Spear podcast. If you're a manufacturing executive and you're serious about unlocking hidden profit, improving frontline leadership, and taking control of your floor, go to grit2lead.com right now. Run the free Sharpened Impact Simulator and discover your biggest opportunities are hiding. Don't leave millions on the table. Sharpen your spear, lead from the front, and win the floor. Until next time, stay sharp.